Welcome to Shift Talking. I'm so happy to have you here. Really honored to have you here. And I'm so excited to jump all in and learn all about you and how you got here and also how our attachment, affects every part of our lives, I'd imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. Thank you so much for having me on here to speak with you and your audience. I'm thrilled.
Yeah, absolutely. I have incorporated some attachment work into the work that I do, of course. And I am far from being an expert. And so I'm really excited to dive in and learn all about you and what you do and how these things work. So tell me about your history. So you are a therapist now, yeah?
I am, yeah. So I work with clients internationally. And really, my goal is to help them understand what secure attachment looks like and to address, if they have attachment issues, and to work really in the present time. So, a lot of therapy modalities will take you back in time into your earlier years, which is it's helpful to a degree, right?
Hmm.
And I will talk a little bit about the childhood influence there. But what I like to do is really focus on where are you at today? And so, what is really triggering you in the world you're living in today, right? In your current environment. And what we find is what's most triggering for people is really, attached to some sort of wound that they actually developed in early childhood, right? So the why they developed it in early childhood is, from my perspective, important to a point. But what can we do in present day to actually unlearn some of those patterns? Now, when we're talking about wounds and attachment styles, everyone has an attachment style. So this is why I find this work so interesting and important. And I like to really distinguish it from talking about mood disorders or personality disorders or mental illness. That's not at all what we're talking about. Really, attachment styles, everyone has one. And it's simply the way in which you would interact with other people and form emotional bonds,
Mm.
right? So we
Yeah.
have some folks, the people who do this in a secure way, and we will talk about what that means. And then we
Mm.
have another cohort of people that do this in an insecure way. And this is really just a reflection of what they learned in their earliest years as a child.
Yeah. I read somewhere, and I actually, in this day and age, I don't know what's real and what's not, that our attachment styles tend to be mostly ingrained or the framework is laid by the time we're 5. Is that accurate?
Yes,
Oh,
that piece is right, right. And so it's so interesting because we are most suggestible as humans from birth. So right out of the oven, 0 to 5. In that time period of our life, even pre-verbal, we are highly suggestible. So the things that we experience, we feel, we see, we smell, we hear, if particularly they're attached to a strong emotion, that creates a pattern, an imprint in our minds. And that typically follows us into adulthood. It becomes almost like a set of rules that we use to engage with ourselves and with others. Like it becomes our compass for what's right and what's wrong, right? And it's not until we get older that we realize, okay, we can actually start to question some of these things, right? So is this actually true, or do I simply believe it to be true?
ugh. Yes.
Mm. Yeah.
Yes. The grossest of questions that's so necessary for us to ask.
Right. And attachment
Yeah.
styles impact us in so many different ways, right? So again, I talked about how we connect to ourselves, the amount of trust that we afford ourselves, the amount of trust that we afford others, our baseline like emotional patterns, our communication style, our personality needs, our relationship to boundaries, and our coping mechanisms, like our behaviors, So I'm talking about things that people do when they're under stress or in conflict, One person might, reach for a tub of ice cream, and the next person might turn on porn. We
Hmm.
all do things, right, to cope.
Yeah.
And this is highly predictive, these behaviors of
Wow.
your attachment style.
Wow. So outside of like the quizzes, how can people learn their attachment style? Or is it mainly just with the quizzes?
So, I mentioned that human behavior is very predictive, actually. Like it's really all set on patterns. So, we can talk a little bit about what secure attachment is and what insecure attachment is. And I think once you and your audience get maybe a deeper understanding, there'll probably be moments where you'll be like, oh, yeah, that's me. Right? Like
Hmm.
you'll see yourself in it.
Yes.
There is, of course, a quiz on my website. It's securelylove.com. People can do it. It's about 10 minutes. It's free. You answer a bunch of questions. They'll tell you sort of where you fall. But if you understand, the sort of the basics of secure and insecure attachment, generally you'll be able to identify more or less where you lean, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I was definitely previously quite anxious,
mm,
insanely anxious, incredibly anxious. And since through the work that I've been doing, I'm now, of course, like more within the secure. And I am so much better at being able to recognize the narratives, the thought processes, the ways that I like lean into naturally into the more anxious and remind myself like, ugh, not my job. Okay, that's not for me. Tone it back,
yes,
focus on what you need and move forward. But it really is kind of a daily practice
it
of
is.
recognizing how these things kind of creep up. It's my autopilot is to be more anxious. And unless I'm staying super mindful, it's just so easy for it to kind of take over.
It absolutely is. So you say your autopilot, that is your subconscious mind that's running the show for all of us. So those patterns that we were talking about, it is like your operating system,
Mm.
right? But what happens is that it's an operating system that doesn't get updated for 20, 30, 40 years, right?
Yeah,
So it's like, some people are still running on DOS. I don't even know if you know that reference. You don't know
I've
that
heard it.
reference?
I've heard it. I'm familiar with it, but I don't understand it. So
Oh
there's
my God.
some
DOS
that,
was before Microsoft Windows. I'm really aging myself. DOS is an acronym, Disk Operating System. So it was it was the operating system before Windows came out.
got it.
So
Okay,
before
that makes okay.
1995. So imagine there's still a cohort of people that are operating on a pre-Windows system.
Woof.
Right? And then
Yeah.
there's people in this world that are using, the most advanced technological smartphones.
Yes.
So
Noted. Fair. Okay.
yeah, that's sort of where we're at. But
Yeah.
I liked also how you mentioned, in reference to yourself, that you were very anxious and now you moved more towards secure attachment. And I think that that's more than fair. There's very few people that smack into a category like I'm securely attached. It's a process, and it is a daily
Yeah.
process. Just like if you wanted to be healthier in your life and eat better and work out, you can make beautiful changes to your physique. We know we can do that
Mhm.
gradually over time, but you don't, for example, put muscle on your frame and then it stays there the rest of your life. You have to
Would be
keep
nice though.
going to the gym. That would be nice.
Yeah. It'd be phenomenal.
I would love that last week I only ate salads and then I'm good. For the rest of my life, I can eat
Yeah.
whatever I want.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And so some people actually think that, well, I went to 3 therapy sessions, so I'm good.
Hmm.
It's
Check
a
the box.
yeah, it's a continual process, right? Of
Yeah.
pouring into yourself, questioning yourself, whether you're talking about, your physical health or your mental health, your mind is not that different from the rest of your body and how you would maintain it and keep it at its optimal momentum.
What do you think keeps people from leaning into that part and allowing themselves to get curious about who they are and why they are that way?
Such a great question. I find that
Loaded.
when
Yeah.
really great question. I find that when people actually take a moment and they learn about attachment styles, there's not a lot of pushback. I think the first part
Mhm.
is awareness. Like,
Yeah.
I haven't noticed a lot of pushback. Like, usually what I end up seeing is this great aha moment And people are like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense.
Yes.
And that's what happened to me as well when I tripped over this work years ago.
Mm.
I was on my own personal journey, like many of us. I knew that in my mind and body, I didn't feel calm.
Okay.
And, I knew that I had a difficult childhood. I intellectually knew that, right? But I had
Mhm.
all of these behaviors and emotional patterns that were really difficult for me to understand and for those around me also. And so I did seek the support and help of, various practitioners, therapists, and I'm a big believer in trying, whatever you could sort of get your hands on,
Yes.
right? Because for one
Yeah.
person, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy is really effective. For another person, EMDR is really effective, which is eye movement rapid desensitization. It's a trauma based therapy.
Mhm.
And so I had tried a variety of things and I found they were helpful to a point. But when I tripped
Mhm.
over attachment styles, I had the biggest aha moment of my life. And it helped me so much that I said, okay, that this is where I need to be spending my time is
Yeah.
in getting the word out and, helping others with that level of impact. Because for me, it was the missing puzzle piece.
Yeah, I'd imagine it is for a lot of us, right? What I learned about myself from learning my attachment style and understanding it fundamentally became what my expectations are of my partner. And
Mm,
whether that boundary is actually a boundary or whether it's just control and whether it actually benefits me or it just feels like it benefits me because it aligns with this like wounded part of me. So there really is this kind of
hmm.
fundamental thing. And if we're talking about it being ingrained by the time we're 5, the part that just freaks me out about that concept is that I don't have a conscious memory of those times.
Great
And
point.
that makes me feel so kind of out of control of myself
Mm.
in those ways. And I also think that that's what opens up the opportunity for people to like, all right, that's woo woo, leave it where it is, because kind of confronting that discomfort
Yeah.
of this, like somebody else, programmed this, didn't give me a manual. And now I'm
Hmm.
left to figure it out. And that just feels daunting and overwhelming.
It is. And it's a great point that you're making. Very, very few people have memory, true memory before 5, right? So the
Yeah.
mind just isn't developed enough. And so most people, if you talk about their earliest childhood memories, will be 6, 7, 8, right? So they don't
Yeah.
remember those first couple of years. And oftentimes, too, if we try to fill in the blanks and speak to our parents or caregivers or our grandmother, whatnot, like, what did the house look like when I was 2 years old? Or was I allowed to run around? Did you hold me a lot? Was there a lot of screaming? You're often met with everything was fine. I don't understand the question,
Uh huh. Yeah. I raised you
right?
all the same. What do you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, so a lot of times we are dealing with missing pieces, but that it doesn't, it almost doesn't matter, right? The why you were programmed, we just sort of start from the point of today. So you have this operating system, it needs to be upgraded.
Mhm.
Let's work on that.
Right. So rather than going back and digging and feeling like I have to unearth these things in order to heal from them or move through them, what I'm hearing from you is like where you are is where you are. We have this history of patterns that kind of
Mhm.
indicate what it is that we're attempting to find in those early years that we go digging in.
Yeah.
And because we're here, let's just work to break the pattern.
Yeah, so it's so interesting because you mentioned yourself and you had expectations of your partner. So
Yeah.
someone who is anxiously attached has some very specific patterns, right? So
Mm-hmm.
again, you would have put the romantic relationship above everything else. It
Yep.
would have been the most important thing to you. Not
Yep.
just you, but anyone who's anxiously attached.
Yeah.
You would have expected a high degree of closeness, attention, validation, reassurance, intimacy, right?
Hmm.
It would have impacted your thought process, your expectation for how much time you spend together, the way that you have sex together, the level of intimacy and authenticity. And it also would impact the way in which the two of you would disagree on things, conflict,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I noticed there was a lot of that. And what I see within myself and those who we can recognize fall more within the anxiousness, we tend to tolerate so much more that than we should. Maybe should is a stronger word,
Hmm.
but more than we would might imagine ourselves being willing to tolerate in order
Hmm.
to have that closeness and have that kind of reassurance that I'm chosen, that, you know, I'm safe.
Yeah. Do you know why that is?
No.
Okay. Well, we're going to dive in. So,
Okay.
we talk about core wounds. So, each one of the different attachment styles has core wounds that are very common. The
Mm.
biggest one for the anxiously attached is I will be abandoned.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Hmm.
So let's explore the anxious attacher a little bit and then we can go into the other styles. Okay. So I'll
Yeah.
just back up a little bit just to give people a backdrop. So
Yeah.
we have secure attachment and we have insecure attachment. And within the insecure attachment framework, we have three subcategories, let's say. So you'll hear people talk about that there's four attachment styles. I group it into two, secure and
Mm.
insecure. And then within insecure, you have anxiously attached or anxious preoccupied,
Hmm.
avoidantly attached or dismissive avoidant, same thing. And then you have the fearful avoidant or disorganized attacher, which is a combo of the two.
Okay.
Okay? So there, however you want to phrase it, there's four, let's say, buckets. Okay? So secure attachment is the one that we're aiming towards. Secure, someone who's has a secure attachment style came out of a home where they got a fair degree of consistent emotional attunement from their caregiver.
Mm.
So they felt a degree of safety and predictability, which is so important for the emotional health of a young child, right? So when
Yeah.
the baby cried, the baby was held, maybe the baby was fed, was coddled, given comfort, felt safe in the parent's arms, all of those things. And especially even when they grew older, if they were experiencing an emotion, the parent helped them understand the emotion, gave them space to feel the emotion, to name the emotion, and responded in a healthy way to the emotion. So, so many times we see a child, for example, screaming in the middle of a grocery store,
Hmm.
right? And the parent generally will go into like a shaming mode. Stop screaming, or you're not going to have dessert, or I'm going to take you right home, or, stuff like this, instead of actually just acknowledging, why are you screaming? What are you
Right.
feeling right now? Right?
Uh-huh.
And I'm not saying that the tantrum behavior should be accepted, it's not. But when a child is having an emotional outburst, it's because they're hurting. And so they're either seeking your attention, your comfort, your safety. And if you
Hmm.
understand that, you'll respond differently.
So, with what you're sharing, though, how common is that? It sounds so like ideal,
Utopia?
and
I know.
yeah,
I
yeah,
know.
it sounds rare.
Again, there's no one who's 100% secure,
Sure.
but people lean secure or they lean this way, they lean that way. Like we all have wounding, we all have micro traumas. Some of us have bigger traumas, right?
Hmm.
The studies suggest that it's I've seen studies say between 40 and 60. 40 and 60% of the population in North America have a secure attachment. I think
Mm.
60 is way too high.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay.
But with social studies, it's self-reported.
Oh.
And
Hmm.
so I tend to think we're probably falling closer to the 40.
I
So,
also recognize that when who we're surrounded by are likely the other. And so I'd imagine that that kind of gives us some bias too, of assuming that
yes.
this is like a good sample size for the rest of the world to be based on.
Yeah, very good
Yeah.
point. Very good point. So, I mean, for simplicity's sake, I usually say half the population is secure and the other half has an insecure attachment because it's
Okay.
just easier to talk. But, we don't know precisely.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big cohort of people that didn't grow up with that level of emotional attunement to build the healthy patterns of interrelation, right? How
Yes.
we
Okay.
interrelate with other people.
Mm.
And so when this child who had the consistent, predictable emotional attunement, when they grow up into an adult, they are remarkably good at being in long term relationships. For them, the world is all about connection. That feels safe to them. That's what they know, that's their template. So they're usually quite emotionally regulated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? There's not a lot of volatility with these people. They usually do very well in long term relationships. They're communicative, they understand themselves, they trust themselves. They will, tell you if they don't like something. They're good with boundaries. All of the things that we kind of strive for in terms of
Sure.
maintaining your mental health.
Mm. Okay. All right.
Should we talk about the other group?
Kinda. I'd
Okay.
imagine most of us don't feel super confident that we fall within that group. And then my brain goes to, well, is there such a thing as overly attuned, right? Like the parents who are attempting to raise securely attached kids that overdo it.
So that's an excellent point, right? There's a real difference between consistent, safe attunement and indulgence,
Mm,
right?
okay.
It's like the difference between, uh, eating until you're full and gluttony,
Sure.
right? Like
Yep.
overdoing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have one bowl of pasta, you're full, versus eating until you throw up. There's a
Yep.
big difference there, right? So
Uh-huh.
the idea here is that it's not to give in to the child's every whim.
Mm.
I'm very careful when I talk about this. I'm a mother. I have two children away at college now.
Wow.
I
Uh-huh.
know it's a beautiful thing, but I know as a mother, I made plenty of mistakes. Was I always emotionally attuned to my kids? No. But I
Yep.
tried to provide a sense of consistency and predictability. That's what
Okay.
gives the child a feeling of safety, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the child knows that if they come to me, they can pretty accurately predict how I'm going to respond to the situation.
Understood. Okay. And I
Yeah.
have two young boys. They're 5 and nearly
Oh,
8. So
oh.
this is the thick of it. And now I'm like, oh, I like missed the window of their attachment style.
No,
Like
you
there
didn't.
is that part that kind of freaks me out.
You didn't miss any window. Trust
Okay.
me. Everything you do from here on in and from the beginning, I can sense already the type of mother that you would be: loving, nurturing, and that's really what the kids need, right? So
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about insecure attachment because I think this will assuage, some of the feelings of did I do enough, did I not? Because really,
Yeah.
we're talking about specific circumstances that kids live through, right? So when we're talking about children who grew up and have an insecure attachment, they didn't receive emotional attunement. They also didn't receive consistency or any predictability, right? Which means that the parents were there sometimes, sometimes not. It wasn't a stable frame.
Okay.
Right? And a lot of people think that, a good parent is I gave you a roof over your head, I gave you 3 meals a day, you went to school, you had clean clothes.
You
But
needed for
for,
nothing.
yeah, but
Yeah.
emotional, you needed for nothing. But emotional attunement, I wish we taught this in school. I wish that people understood how important it is for us as humans and our development. It really is critical. So just because you had 3 meals a day doesn't mean you got what you needed from your parents, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're starting to understand a little bit more. So if we're going to go back now to the insecure, we're talking about those three subcategories, and we'll start with the anxious attacher. The anxious attacher really didn't have in their childhood predictable love. Usually, what they had was something where they had moments of love and then the moment was taken away. So, this could be so many different scenarios, right? There could have been a parent who was away from home often because they had to work, and the child
Mhm.
felt like they were being abandoned. They
Mm.
perceived that they were being abandoned, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean they were abandoned, but that's how they
Hmm.
perceived it. It could
Okay.
be a parent who, for example, was mentally ill, and one day they were very happy, and the next day they were, in a completely different emotional state. It could
Mm.
be a parent, for example, who had an alcohol problem or a drug problem. It could be, a parent who was emotionally unavailable, who just couldn't connect with their child. There's so many different scenarios whereby a parent doesn't connect fully emotionally with the child, but the child learns love enough to understand that this is what they desire, and then they spend those years chasing after it. So they know that they want the love from their parents, and
Mhm.
they internalize it as, well, if I want my mother, father, caregiver to love me, I'm going to become this perfect little version. I'm going to become really likable. I'm going to be easy to be around. I'm going to help everyone else. I'm never going to be in a bad mood. I'm going to do everything that they say. I'm going to be the teacher's pet because, well, who doesn't like the kid that is so agreeable?
Sure.
The easiest way to be liked is to just not say no to
And by the
anything.
way, there were air quotes around the liked part. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So this is a pattern that
Mm.
forms, right? And so this adult grows up. Typically, when they get into a romantic relationship, they typically will choose a partner who's emotionally unavailable and repeat the same dynamic. They will chase and chase and chase after a person to get the love from them that that person is not able to give.
So, how does that work though? Because in the logical mind, it would say, I know what love feels like, and I'm going to want that all of the time. So, let me find someone who is emotionally in touch with themselves to be able to provide that for me all the time. So, where do the lines get crossed?
Yeah, you really do ask great questions.
Thank you.
So, very good. So, we're talking about the subconscious mind. So, I'm going to go into nerdy mode for a moment. So,
Please.
okay, the subconscious mind governs upwards of 97% of our thoughts, our beliefs, and emotions, and ultimately our behavior.
Wow.
So, and most of the time, we're not aware of our subconscious mind unless we actually bring it into our conscious awareness and we really
Mm.
think about it. So, our conscious awareness governs 3, 4, maybe 5%, right? So, the subconscious mind is really just simply trying to pull you towards what is familiar because it's a survival tactic.
Sure.
We've already lived through this. I know it's familiar. We know how to handle this scenario. So we'll keep going back to a dynamic that we know. Your subconscious mind is not going, well, this is not the best thing for Davina. So,
Yeah.
we're going to guide her into another direction. The
Mm.
subconscious mind actually plays a big part in who you're attracted to. And one of the things is your subconscious comfort zone. So when you come into contact with someone else, and there's a
Mhm.
few things that go on, right? But have you ever had this feeling where you met someone and you're like, it just feels so familiar,
Uh-huh. Of
right?
course. Yeah.
That's part of the attraction. What you're saying is this dynamic, I understand this dynamic, I've lived it before. And so if we don't examine that and we don't think about it, we that's the direction that we go. When you meet someone who's emotionally safe, right,
Mhm.
securely attached, oftentimes that will feel unsafe to you because you haven't experienced this before. You don't
Yeah.
have a template. Your operating system doesn't recognize it. You're like, this is foreign. Like, what is this? And you'll
Mhm.
reject it, right? Something, it'll
Yeah.
feel odd to you. And the way that we reject it is very interesting. Like everyone, many people, especially on the internet, talk about the ick.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So you'll get these moments of the ick where you're like, that doesn't feel good. That's your subconscious mind actually trying to signal you there's a discomfort. Something feels off, something feels wrong. But again, the subconscious mind is just saying, we don't know how to handle this situation. Not that the situation is unsafe, but we confuse those messages. Right?
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
just unfamiliar.
Unfamiliar.
Mm.
Yeah. And so if you truly want to connect with someone who's securely attached and you've never had that type of love in your life, it is going to feel different,
Hmm.
foreign, scary. You know, it's going to
Sure.
be unsettling, but just for a period of time until you could sort of acclimate to, okay, this is the new normal, right? But typically
Hmm.
what happens is we don't give people that much time. You know,
Sure.
we don't. Like we
Yeah.
go out on a first date and we go, not for me.
I didn't get the butterflies. I didn't get the,
You know, the
yeah.
butterflies, those are the we like to talk about romance like it's a Disney film. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. The butterflies are actually not a good thing. So the butterflies are your nervous system kicking into high gear and saying there's a threat.
Oh,
We
no.
think we think, "Oh my gosh, the butterflies." Butterflies are anxiety, it's nervousness,
Yes.
right? When
Hmm.
else would you feel butterflies?
For a presentation before you do something
Great.
scary.
Great. Yes, I
Yeah.
would before you do something great. Like if you're climbing a roller coaster right before it takes the drop, you're like, "Oh," right? Because
Yeah.
your body's recognizing the threat. You know, you're
Mm.
going skydiving or something right before you jump, your body's recognizing the threat. Before
Mm.
you do a presentation, you're nervous because, especially if you're anxiously attached, you're wired for perfectionism because this is how you got love and attention is that you performed, right? You did well, you performed, this is how you were seen and validated and loved. So if you screw up, your mind is saying, "Oh my god, that's a really big threat. I will no longer be loved."
Mm.
So the threat, it's a threat. That's why you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god, this better go well," because the thought of failing in your mind, you've made it into such a big threat.
So why with some and not with others?
What do you mean?
So when somebody's on like dating,
Yeah.
right? What would make them get those like butterflies with some and not others?
Excellent
If they're
question.
familiar?
Um, no, not
Okay.
necessarily if they're familiar. So there's a couple of things. Attraction is science based. I know we
Okay.
tend to think people say you can't help who you're attracted to, which is true to a degree. It is.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, uh, I don't believe that you can't help who you fall in love with because falling in love is a process of intentional spending time with someone, getting
Hmm.
to know them, and you could choose to not spend time with someone by which you'll never fall in love with them, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But attraction's different, right? So a couple of things. There's trait variety. Trait variety with this is the whole adage of opposites attract.
Okay.
So this goes back to early humanity. So if I was, like a strong, caveman and I was resourceful and good at hunting and you were very nurturing and loving and good at other things, you and I, let's say you were really intelligent, it would make sense for our survival to come
Team
together.
up.
Because if we
Yeah.
teamed up, both of us had a higher likelihood of survival. So that trait
Mm.
variety is actually built into our lizard brain.
Is that why for so many of us, and I work with a lot of couples and parents, right? The things that we loved about each other in the very beginning, right? Like I hear men say, like, I loved how independent she was. She would put me in my place, la da da, all of this end up being the exact complaints that they have
Yeah.
about us later.
Yes. Precisely.
Mm,
So the things that we usually love about our partner in the beginning, what we find most attractive, is usually the thing that ends up breaking us up in the end. Yeah. But we see this mostly with people who, two attachment styles that are both insecure. So
got it.
we talked about a little bit about the person who's anxiously attached.
Hmm.
The anxious attacher will oftentimes fall hard for someone who's avoidantly attached.
Hmm.
Now, why is that? It's exactly what you're describing. So the anxious
Wow.
attacher will think that the person who's avoidantly attached, will be very impressed by their sense of independence and how together they are, and their level of stoicism, although it's really just repressed emotion, but it's perceived as confidence.
Hmm.
And the people who are avoidantly attached have really beautiful relationships with boundaries, which people who are anxiously attached do not understand boundaries at
Nope.
all. Don't
Hmm.
understand them. Don't. They find it almost insulting. Like, why are you imposing a boundary on me?
Hmm.
And so there's a lot that the anxious person will like about the avoidant person, and the reverse is true too. So the avoidant person, we'll talk more about that in a moment, will
Yeah.
really love the kind and generous and open spirit of someone who is avoidantly attached. Someone who's anxiously attached. Someone
Hmm.
who's anxiously attached is usually like a bundle of love.
Yeah.
They just want to love you. They like to be surrounded by groups of people. They're very open. They're very generous. They're kind. But again, they're operating from a place. Their core wound is, I will be abandoned. So they're loved by everyone because they have learned how to be people pleasers.
Sure.
They have learned to be so incredibly likable, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
this is a change of pace for the person who is avoidantly attached because they were emotionally neglected in childhood. So they didn't have that warmth. They didn't have that emotional connectivity, right? They were left alone a lot as a child to handle things on their own. So all of a sudden, this other person comes along and they're like, you don't have to do life alone. You have me,
I'll
right?
make you my whole world. Don't worry.
You'll be everything to me. Like, and in the beginning it's like, wow, this feels so good to mean so much to someone. But it doesn't take long for that to start to feel really suffocating, overwhelming, and threatening to the person who's avoidantly attached,
Mm,
because their framework is very different. Because they were left alone or emotionally like neglected in childhood, they don't have the modeling to be able to connect emotionally in a healthy way with someone else.
mm.
Their expectation is, I have my feelings and you have yours. Like, I will handle mine, you will handle yours. Like, they're extremely good at avoiding their own feelings. They're even better at avoiding their partner's feelings.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
Well,
that initial spark, when you get an anxious and an avoidant together, it's usually like, especially depending on how far they are in their polarities. And I've seen this play out in real time with, like, in my social group, where there
okay.
was someone who was highly avoidant and someone highly anxious, and they met and it was explosive. It
Wow.
was, and it's fascinating to watch. It was explosive for 6 weeks. I think it was good for 2 weeks, but like good to a point like Disney couldn't make this movie.
Uh-huh.
That spectacular of a connection. And then for 4 weeks, they fought intensely, and then it,
Right.
it ended.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Because really, they are very, very different.
Mm,
Very, very different. Someone who's anxiously attached really wants that closeness, right? They want the intimacy. And someone who's avoidantly attached is really scared of that intimacy, right? And it doesn't
yeah.
mean that they can't build towards intimacy, but they take things really slow. And the person who's anxiously attached, they move at the speed of light.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this all makes sense of why I typically describe anxious as feeling as more likely to confuse chaos for excitement.
Mm.
And that like, oh no, this, I love him. I love her. She's who I want. And this is like, this is why. And so then it is this kind of like push pull. You're always keeping me on my toes. I can't ever get
Mhm.
comfortable and feel safe with you. And then if I do, then it's like, ugh, you're boring. And then I have to like
Yeah, there you
move
go.
on
You're
to the next
boring.
one. Yeah.
You're boring. That's another version of the ick. I need a little bit of excitement. I need, so what
Yeah.
you're saying is that you're used to the emotional volatility, the up and down, right? Like, so there's a reward system there, right? Intermittent reinforcements. So it's the same principle behind gambling. I don't know if you've ever used a slot machine.
I'm from Vegas originally.
Okay, so you might have seen
Oh
one or
yeah.
two.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that about
Yeah,
you.
of course.
And I'm like, have you ever seen a slot machine? Anyways, okay.
Yeah, you
So,
can. According to a lot of people who haven't been to Vegas, we like live in hotels. I live on the floor of the casino floor.
of
We're good
course
to
you did.
go.
You
Yeah.
always had quarters in your pocket.
Yeah.
Of course.
Deck of
Anyway,
cards ready to play anytime.
the reason that slot machines, as an example, are so addictive is because of the concept of intermittent reinforcement, which positive reinforcement, which means that you lose, you lose, you win.
Mm-hmm.
You lose, you lose, you win. And so what that does is it keeps dropping these bombs of dopamine, like
Yeah.
great, and then lose, lose, lose. And so dopamine is just the feel good chemical that our brain releases, right? So when you
Yeah.
talk about being on that roller coaster, I'm close to you, I'm not, I can never quite feel safe. What you're doing is you're indulging in that anxious avoidant dance, which is really just, it just keeps dropping dopamine hits.
And it's
And
addicting.
it's addicting. It
Yeah.
feels really good in the moment until the next day you're being ignored. And then it
Yeah.
doesn't feel good. But then 2 days later, you're called back again and it feels good again.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So
Okay.
this is definitely something that we see over and over and over with someone who is anxiously attached. Again, because the love that you received in childhood was not predictable.
Mm.
So I'm not blaming your parents. There could be a myriad of circumstances, but it means that you got a little bit of love, it was taken away. You got a little bit of love, it was taken away, right? So in your mind, you became very sensitive or triggered by the idea of being abandoned, right?
Yeah.
The other core wounds that you carry, well, maybe not you, but typically someone who's anxiously attached will carry is I am unlikable, I am
Uh-huh.
unlovable,
Yep.
I will be alone, I am bad, or I'm not good enough, these types of things,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so the amount of trust that someone who's anxiously attached affords themselves is very limited, very limited. And their ability to self soothe is also very limited. They were never taught how to do this. And so they are heavily reliant on external sources. I would
Yeah.
venture a guess to say you've got a large group of friends.
Used to. And
Okay.
once I started doing the work, not so much. Yeah.
Right. And fair because usually when we're so dependent on external sources for our validation to help us soothe, we need 12 different people to call. Like every day something
Yeah.
happens, I don't know, you got a text and it aggravated you and you needed, 10, 12 people to talk about it for the day
Mm-hmm.
because just sitting with it and processing yourself was not something you could do.
Yeah. I would just suffer. I didn't have any differing perspectives. I just had all of these different versions of me giving me narratives that were just atrocious. I was like, that's
Right.
not going to be
But one
helpful.
story is worse than the next. Let,
Yes.
let me ask you because the more you are sort of like it's a scale, right? It's a continuum. So the closer you are to being truly anxiously attached, the more difficult it is for you to be alone. Did you
Mhm.
find it difficult for you to spend Saturday night alone?
100%. I didn't know what to do with that. There were
Okay.
like during the day, it was nice because I was just so busy, but I could not spend an evening home alone. And then once I noticed that I kind of wanted that, I went and got a dog. I was like, I need something to
Yeah.
comfort me and love me all the time. Whereas now I'm much more of a cat person than a dog. I'm like, ugh, you're so needy. My God. Like, back off. It's just these things completely shifted
Hmm.
everything. It's
Yeah.
incredible. I didn't
You
know
have
how to
such a
be by
great sense of
myself.
humor. Yeah. I mean, it's good to laugh at this stuff, right? Because
Oh, yeah.
again, we're not talking about mental illness. This is learned behavior.
Mm.
We learned this stuff in childhood, which also means, as you beautifully demonstrated, we can unlearn and relearn,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me in doing that was just not looking back
Hmm.
on this previous version of me with the same disgust and disdain that I
Right.
used to. I'm now that I can view her more compassionately and I even like refer to her by my maiden name. There's
Okay.
that part. I needed the separation so that I could look back and say, wow, like she knew what she needed. She just didn't know how to get it.
Yeah.
And now it's very different, but without that, like when I my knee jerk reaction is to go back and just shit on her and judge her and just like
Yes.
cringe at
Yeah.
her. And now it's just like, oof, she just didn't know, and
She
she,
just didn't
she
know.
struggled.
So
Yeah.
she did the best she could to survive her circumstances,
Yeah.
whatever it may be,
Hmm.
right? But kudos to you for the work that you've done in understanding your own mind and bringing yourself to a place where you can now sort of critically think about, okay, why am I feeling this way? What is this, what is this telling me? This trigger is telling me, okay, maybe I still have a little more healing to do on the, maybe my trigger is I feel unseen and unheard. It's okay, so maybe I have some more work to do in that area, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your girl's quick to resentment. And so as soon as I start feeling it, I'm like, oof, okay, where are we at? And just
Yeah.
try to do that work first before I go to someone else and expect them to fix me at all.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that there's a really good point that you brought. So the fact that you recognize now that you had these patterns and that, for example, being alone on a Saturday night was so uncomfortable for you.
Hmm.
I would venture a guess to say that now you're like, if you have a Saturday night alone, you're like, thank God.
Please,
Yeah.
please,
Yeah.
anytime. Yeah, when my husband, because my husband is, of course, he was, of course, avoidantly attacked,
Yep.
like, well, more, I think more disorganized, but yeah, definitely avoidantly. And we got together at 23. We were friends for a few years first,
Okay.
and we've been together since. We share these two boys. And in the beat, like when we were dating, he would just say, like, oh, I'm going to go somewhere by myself. Like, I just need alone time. And
Oof.
I would hear, I need time away from you.
Yes. I
And
don't
so
want to
then
be with
he
you.
would, yeah, like you're annoying. It's too much. Because I was like, if you love someone, we're just going to be together all the time, right? Like you just don't ever get sick of each other. Isn't that what love is? Isn't that how this is supposed to be? And he was just like, "No, it's not time away from you. It's just time by myself. And
Yeah.
this guy, we just tortured each other for so many years. Just not knowing, not understanding what it
Not
was. And then
understand.
once we learned, it was then like, well, what do I do about this now? And now it feels so like daunting to even attempt to address. So it took a crisis 4 years ago for us to get to that point. My husband's, we're celebrating his 4 year sobriety next month. And
Oh,
that is just incredible.
love
And the
that.
work that he's doing helps me see my own shit and really do my own work. And I'm so proud of where we're at and how we've shifted our parenting and all of these things. And that's why I do this. So it's just incredible. And we didn't get to go really deeply into the other ones. We made it all about anxiousness. So I
No,
do want
we're
to.
gonna go. We can do a
Okay,
little bit of the other, but I'm so
perfect.
glad that you shared that story because it's a beautiful example of you can come to a level of awareness individually and then also then work to shift a dynamic, right?
Yeah.
So now if your husband says to you, I just need a little bit of alone time, you understand he's not saying, I find you annoying, I want to get away from you. He's just saying, I need the way that I decompress my nervous system and the way that I calm myself is I do it alone.
Yeah. Well, and even now I can go and see him like in our bedroom and say, hey, do you want some alone time or do you want company? And now I can offer it in a way that doesn't, and even if he says like, oh, I'm good to take some alone time, I'm not like, gutted,
Mhm.
like asking just so that you'll say, no, 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 come on in. But now it's like, okay, or do you want it? Yes, no? Okay, cool.
Yeah. And sometimes even like sometimes it's cool, what a partner might say, like, yeah, you know what, if you want to sit here and read a book, I don't feel like talking, but happy to have you
Mhm.
just sort of hang out in the room, right?
Yes.
So it's beautiful to get to that place, and I think you guys have done some great work there. So it's no surprise that you ended up with someone who is more on the avoidant side, because that's where we usually see the attraction points.
Hmm.
But again, someone who is avoidantly attached, or dismissive avoidant typically comes out of a home where they experienced a fair degree of emotional neglect, or they experienced like a high degree of like enmeshment, like they had an overly involved mother, for example, that put a lot of emotional burdens on them, and made it all about themselves, right? And so what we find is that the child doesn't learn how to identify their own emotions. They don't have a safe place to communicate their emotions, and their strategy, it's a coping strategy, is they learn to just repress and push everything down and just keep marching forward. And so
Is
they
that why they,
become,
they feel trapped so easily
yes,
too?
that's
Yeah.
right. So the feeling of trapped is, I will never go back there again.
Hmm.
So the feeling of trapped can get triggered when they feel like someone is emotionally depending on them, because yeah, because that would be reminiscent of perhaps a relationship that they once had. When they were younger, they were trapped,
Yeah.
because when you're younger you have no choice. And so subconsciously, I will never put myself in that position again. I will always maintain my independence. I'm overly self-reliant. I'm not going to ask anyone for help. I'm just going to, if I have a problem, I'm going to deal with it myself. um,
What prevents them from verbalizing that? Like we're in a ghosting, period
mhm.
of time. And so
Yeah.
what keeps, I think I'm answering my own question in my head, but what keeps them from just saying this isn't working out, I'm not interested? Why completely pull back
Okay.
or
Why,
disappear?
why do you think? Because you know the answer.
I think well, because it's they'd have to confront it and then it'll pull back and then there will be resistance and likely more of a lean in. And they
Right.
just don't want to tolerate it, don't want to deal with it. I've had enough of
Hmm.
that shit. I want nothing to do with it. And
Right.
so it's easier to just bail out, safer maybe to bail out than like walk back into the jail cell you just got yourself out of.
Yeah, they really, really shy away from conflict, because I think I mentioned earlier, they're very good at ignoring their feelings, but they're even
Yeah.
better at ignoring the feelings of their partner.
Mm.
So if I'm going to say to you, you know what, Davina, I enjoyed meeting you, but I just don't think we're right for each other. If I feel that you're going to have an emotional reaction, like, and
Mhm.
you start saying to me, well, why? You didn't like me? Or maybe we just have a second
What did I
date and see how,
do?
what did I
Uh-huh.
do? Or am I not pretty enough for you? Or whatever it is,
Oh,
whatever
yeah.
insecurities, that's going to trigger them. So it's an avoidance. I'm just going to not say anything because I don't want to potentially deal with the emotional outburst.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll do a slow fade and hope they don't notice. And oftentimes, if you go, where have you been? They'll be like, oh, I'm busy. So there's no
Uh-huh.
one busier in this world than someone who's avoidant, because
Yeah.
really they just don't want to engage on the emotional front.
Well,
So,
and then they know this and then they come back around when the radar tells them that you've moved on, right? So
right.
how
Do you know why that is?
I because they're needing it, they're lonely and they want no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're totally
Okay.
on the mark.
Okay. You were shaking your head. I was like, oh
No, no,
no.
no. I'm going, yep, yep, yep.
Is
Because,
there a guarantee? I'm lonely, I need this attention and you'll give it to me. And I can
right.
ghost you again, and then next time you'll come back anyway.
Couple of things. If you let
Okay.
someone in who's ghosted you, you've set the pace for what you'll accept and won't accept. So if you allow me in once, of course I'm going to think you'll allow me in a second, third, fourth time, right? If
You
you forgive
will.
me
Yeah.
once, so your own boundary. And again, anxiously attached people are not good with boundaries. So they're the ones who typically go, okay, I understand you're having a bad day, right? They typically
Yep.
let you back in. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, so that's part of it, right? But
Yeah.
um, I'm losing my thought train here. The question is about whether.
Why they return after the ghost.
So the other part of this is that people who are avoidantly attached are not great at communicating verbally. It's not necessarily a skill that they have because they didn't learn it. It doesn't mean they don't communicate, but you have to pay a little bit greater attention. They actually communicate with their body. They communicate with their behavior far more than verbal. So if you're having, let's say, an argument with them, they're likely to leave the room, slam the door. If you call them, they're likely to not pick up the phone. If you send them a text, they're likely to not answer for 3 days. They're communicating to you.
Yeah.
They're just not using the words. And as people, we need to be able to discern that level of body language and communication as well.
Yeah, the stairwells and streets I used to literally chase my husband down
I'm sure.
are many. Many.
I'm
It's
sure.
just such a wild thing. I would have preferred for him to just scream in my face during a fight than step outside quietly.
But he would never do that. That was your preference.
Hmm.
That was your preference. So usually we have certain tactics that we use depending on our attachment style for conflict and coping behaviors.
Mm.
So someone who is anxiously attached typically will fight because you're fighting for someone's attention, right? Like,
Just show
and
me that
then
you give a shit.
show me that you
But
give a
that's all it
shit.
was. Yeah.
Right. Because even eliciting a negative feedback from someone is still attention.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
We also see there's actually four trauma responses, right? There's fight, flight, freeze, and
Mhm.
fawn. Yeah, fawn is the people pleaser. So
Yep.
that comes in heavily as a tactic as well, right?
Mm.
For someone who's anxiously attached. For someone who's avoidantly attached, they typically rely very heavily on flight.
Mm.
So it's like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're running away. Like you actually said, they're running down the street, right?
Literally chase this
Literally.
man
I
so
know.
many times. It's insane. Yeah.
Because he really needed to be alone to process,
Yeah.
right? Because at that point in time his nervous system was being overloaded. And
Mhm.
so he's doing what he needs to survive. And
Mhm.
you're doing what you need to survive. You're activating, you're chasing him, you're going towards your love interest because you
Yeah.
need to reestablish the closeness or you don't feel good.
Yeah, I don't know that you're going to come back. So I'd rather just chase your ass down, keep you in my line of sight, and know that you're not going to bail.
Right. So
Yeah.
what I teach couples in this anxious avoidance cycle is, communicate. If you and this is the hardest thing for avoidance. If you need time to yourself, don't just get up and walk out of a room.
Mhm.
Say, this is too much for me right now. I'm going to go for a walk. Can we continue the conversation after dinner after I've had a little bit of time?
Yeah. And
And
then
that's
anxious needs to let them, right? Like
yes.
I got into anger management in an attempt to fix my husband. He was Hulk smashing walls, punching shit whenever we got into arguments, slamming doors,
Because
storming
he
out.
communicates through body language.
Yes. And so
Yes.
much energy, right? And
Uh-huh.
so that would happen. And then he would try to leave and I'd be like, no, I'm not going to let you go. We're going to address this. We're going to sit down. Oh, what? You can't stay to address this? How, and just fucking taunt this man. And so I got into the work in an attempt to fix him. Didn't know what anger management was. Just knew that like this is what people do when they're punching stuff. And then was sitting in my training and was like, oh God, I'm the problem. I'm just such a big part of the problem. No wonder he's breaking down walls. I'm trapping him. I won't let him leave. And I'm crazy anxious and I'm enabling the drinking and I'm doing all of these things. What is that? And so I, of course, had my own work to do. Whereas now if I'm more of the one to say like, I'm too heated, I'm going to leave and I'll be back in 5 minutes. There's more of that where it's like, okay, go. When will you be back? Give me 10 minutes. I'm going to walk around the block. Great. Do you, I'll do me. And then we tend to, come back together. It's just taken such a long amount of time. And now because our kids were so affected, they were so young when everything happened. We are now, when we come back, as long as it's nothing that's like too grown up to talk about, we will bring our kids in and be like, hey, Papa and I got into an argument. I was feeling sad about this and he felt this. And we're gonna apologize and make repair. And like, do you guys want to watch? And so we give them the opportunity to see, like they hear certain arguments and tones and these types of things. And then afterward, I want them to see how we recover and what that looks like and sounds like, and then let it spark up again a little bit and then go back down again and find a way to mutually understand and mutually take accountability and do this. And so it's just, we're trying so hard to give that to our kids because we just had polar opposite upbringings. And it's taken us a really long time to figure out how to like blend them together in a way that makes sense.
I love what you're sharing with me, that how the two of you found a way to work through your dynamic. I don't care that it took you so long. You got there. Many people don't get there. You got there. And now you're also teaching your children that it's okay to fight and make repair. And here's how you make repair.
Yeah.
Right? You're not always going to have the same viewpoint as someone else, right? Mommy and daddy think differently, so we don't always agree. That's okay, right? So what you're doing is beautiful work. And I will say, you kind of laughed and you said, oh no, I'm the problem. This is why he's punching the walls. And you weren't the problem.
Contributing. Yes.
Contributing.
Yeah. No. I never took full spotlight. I was just like, no, that's, you're like, problematic.
Maybe exacerbating, right? Like, So the feeling of being trapped is a big one. I experience it myself because I'm more avoidantly attached. When I feel trapped, it really does trigger me. So again, as much as you can learn to identify your triggers and how they show up in your physical body, and then be able to turn to your partner and say, I'm going to go take a drive. I'm feeling trapped. I don't like the feeling. Let me just take some space and I'll come back in an hour.
Oh, and huge.
And it's huge. Instead of like, it changes everything. So my partner's like, okay, see you in an hour. Because he knows I'm coming back.
Yeah.
Right? And there's no point in fighting. Why am I going to fight?
The thrill. No.
The thrill is the intermittent reinforcement, the dopamine hit. So that's thrilling for you. It's not thrilling for your partner.
Yeah.
He does not get a dopamine hit when the two of you are fighting.
That's why he doesn't express complaints.
Because he doesn't want to get into any level of conflict. So what people who are anxiously attached really need is harmony in relationships. They need harmony and peace. So that is their unspoken truth. Like if they have an expectation, it's like the expectation for them would be, again, I'm going to focus on my emotions. You're going to handle yours. You're not going to rely on me to soothe you. You're not going to, invade my freedom. You're not going to take away my independence. This relationship, if it's meant to be, should just be easy, right? There shouldn't be conflict in our relationship. These are some of the unspoken expectations that someone who's avoidantly attached will have.
How do you differentiate between the avoidant and the disorganized?
Excellent question. Okay, good. And this is a good place to sort of round out the discussion. Okay. The disorganized attachers, that's the smallest cohort of people, right? So we talked about, let's say we're doing a 50-50 split. 50% of our population in North America is securely attached, and then we've got 50% insecurely. We can sort of generally say 20% is anxious, 20% are avoidant, and let's say 10% are fearful avoidant or disorganized. Now, that fearful avoidant category, really what they experience is they have the traits of both the anxious attacher and the avoidant attacher. And this is
Mhm.
how I lived my life for many years. And it was confusing as hell
Hmm.
for me
Yeah.
and for those around me, which means that my template was disorganized in a sense that I very much desired closeness, but I was also very afraid of vulnerability and intimacy. And so, in a romantic context, that's often illustrated as the hot and the cold partner.
Mm.
So, come here, and then, oh, wait, you're too close, push you away. We spend a day together. Now I need 3 days alone. Back and forth, back and forth.
Mm.
And this generally arises when a child is in a home that's very chaotic.
Mm.
Again, no stable frame. Oftentimes we see abuse, and it could be any kind of abuse.
Mm.
And the young child has a very hard time making sense out of the fact that they desire closeness from, let's say, a father, right? Let's say their father, they really desire closeness, comfort, safety that they get some of the time from the
Mm.
father, but in other moments of the time, in this example, the father's also harming them. It could be physical, verbal, emotional, it could be sexual, it could be all of the above. And so what happens is the child is drawn to the father for that safety, comfort, love,
Mhm.
but is also petrified.
So the same person who brings me love also brings me danger.
That's right.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. And so the mind doesn't know, the child's mind, right? The young child's mind doesn't know how to parse that out. This person is the one that I desire closeness from. They're also the person that I'm afraid of. So I'm going to get close, but not too close. I'm going to come in, I'm going to step out, right? And then that pattern is what carries forward. And so these people have a very hard time in relationships, very hard time. This is the most complex group because they carry core wounds from the anxious attacher and the avoidant attacher, which means they'll carry wounds like I will be abandoned, I'm unlikable, unlovable, I am bad. But then they'll also have wounds from the um, the avoidant, which is like I am defective, right? Yeah, I am weak. Like there's things there that they will carry also. I will lose my freedom, like I will be enveloped, right?
Yeah.
It's a hard one. And when we talk about
Gnarly.
trust, when we talk about
Mhm.
trust, this is the last point that I'll bring up. I think it'll hit home for you. Trust is a really, really important thing that comes out of attachment styles. When we look at the anxious attacher generally does not have trust in themselves, but affords trust to everyone else,
Yes.
which is a reason why something happens in your life and you're not trusting yourself to process it and figure out what to do next. You need to ask a bunch of people for their input.
Almost, it's not only input, I'm looking for permission
There you go.
in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you really don't trust yourself to be able to properly assess the situation. Are my emotions accurate? Am I going to handle this the right way? And so you're really reliant on those external sources. No, the avoidant person is the complete opposite. Won't surprise you.
Sure.
They have a high degree of trust in themselves. I mean, they spent their life essentially emotionally alone. So if there's anything that they know about themselves is they're hyper independent. Like I can do it on my own,
Hmm.
right? They do not trust others.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very slow for them to warm up to trust other people. And so, that's something they need to work on. But the
Yeah.
person who is fearful avoidant has the mix of the two. So this is the worst, I would say the most difficult and challenging one that you can have is they don't trust themselves,
Mm.
but they also don't trust others.
Woof. Yeah.
Yeah, and their biggest, the one that we see time and time again as the biggest core wound is I will be betrayed.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah,
it
interesting.
is. And it's one of those things that when my husband found sobriety, or like sought it out, there was that part that for his drinking for those few years prior, there were so many times that I knew he was drinking.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't prove it, but I knew it.
Mm-hmm.
And his ability to convince me that my perception was wrong, and
Mm-hmm.
I would override what I knew to be true. I overrode
Mm-hmm.
my intuition. I overrode everything that I'm seeing and smelling and sensing. And that's where, when we had this crisis, we were very seriously talking about separation, because that was the one part that I had so much resentment toward
Yeah.
him for, was I let you. Well, at the time the narrative was, you made me question my own self. I'm finally trusting myself, and you made me question my own intuition, and I overrode it. And then that pivoted into, I let myself doubt myself. I let my love for you, my adoration for you, my all of these things for you override what I knew to be true. My own perception of my own reality, I allowed to be called into question. And
Yeah.
that was a really hard thing for me to push through. Whereas, of course, we chose to rewrite our entire marriage, and thankfully, and, we're doing beautifully. It's that I think was so hard. And it was hard for me to forgive myself, because it got to this like massive point that was just atrocious. And now we look back and we still call it our crisis, but we lovingly call it our crisis. We're both so deeply grateful that we got rocked to our cores so that we could rebuild entirely new and different. And it sucks and it's shit that we have to get to that point. It's
But it
almost
was
like
needed.
yeah, it's almost like it has to meet or exceed our like upbringing level of betrayal, of upset, of just the
Mhm.
world ending, in order to like see that we can make it through.
So the other thing that I question too, and you articulate this so beautifully, but I question too if there was another part in you that didn't push it too hard, because again, you might have been working off a narrative that if I push him too far, he will leave.
Yeah, I made so many empty threats. And in my
Mhm.
brain, I was just like, good God, please don't make me. Like, I'm not going anywhere. I just need you to know how serious I am about this, but I
Right.
just really want you to change and meet me. And then once I started doing the work on myself, there was so much of I like threatening to end and hoping that he wouldn't take me up on it became a fucking try me. And
Hmm.
I'm not, I told him around that time, I will raise my children with an alcoholic, 100%. I will not raise them with an active alcoholic. And then it became something new and completely different. And from there, everything kind of changed. And it's almost like he respected me more. He
Imagine that.
respect
Because
for
you
me.
learned boundaries.
Yeah. And I just felt so disgusted by it. And it's wild how we will convince ourselves that what we think is safe actually puts us at harm.
Hmm.
And what I worry will push him away actually let him lean in. And
Yep.
it's a mind fuck, really.
Yeah, it is. But you guys
Yeah.
really have figured out the big pieces. And oftentimes avoidantly people are sort of characterized as being secretive. So it doesn't surprise me that he would, drink sort of, incognito, like not let you know.
Yeah.
That was most likely fueled by shame. He already knew what he
Mhm.
was doing was wrong, and he didn't want you to reveal that to you, because he
Yeah.
himself obviously already felt that there was something wrong in his behavior or defective, right?
Hmm.
Why am I drinking? Which, by the way, if we're talking about addictions, we see a large cohort of people addicted, alcohol, drugs, whatnot, who are avoidantly attached, and also who are anxiously attached.
Sure.
So the two camps of people are very interesting. Um, they both feel unsafe. They both have a core wound of I am unsafe. It's the only core wound that they share.
Mm-hmm.
I am unsafe. But the anxious person generally overfeels, right? And they underthink. which means
Yeah.
they're over reliant on their emotional part of their brain and less rational, less logical.
Hmm.
And the avoidant does the opposite, tends to over intellectualize and underfeel. So they push their emotions down,
Yeah, and that's
right?
why I'd imagine people now when I'm talking to people, especially in my personal life, who lead more with their emotions, I'm just like, ugh, stop. Like there's just this part that I just like, it's so hard for me to tolerate now
It is.
that then I think I become less compassionate.
I think, once your eyes gets open to some of these things, I think you can, I don't think it's a lack of compassion. I think as you go through a process of healing and understanding yourself, you will require higher and higher degrees of authenticity from people around you.
Yeah.
And so when you see someone who's sort of emotionally volatile or doing too much to please you or what, it's not authentic. They're
Mhm.
doing it so that they can fill a particular need, right? Maybe
Yeah.
they really want your friendship for a particular reason. Maybe they feel lonely. Maybe they need, but it's not authentic,
Mm.
right? So that's what you're gonna need more and more is authenticity. You're gonna require it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a separate question that's been
Sure.
eating away at my soul for a while.
Okay.
And I don't know if there's any answer to this.
Oh
So
gosh.
my, and this is haven't really said this out loud very much
Okay.
in my life, but it's something that I have been wanting to address in general. And I'm not turning this into therapy. I think it's important for people to hear. I, with my elder son, we lost my brother unexpectedly when I was 7 months pregnant with him. And then my husband and I were really rocky. And of course, postpartum just fucking hit really hard.
Yeah.
And my son, when he was around 1, I just had no tolerance for coddling and no tolerance of like rocking him down to sleep and all of this. And I let him cry himself to sleep for 55 minutes before he passed out. And I am just every time he's anxious with me or just so clingy with me in my brain, I'm like, I like that's what that was because I neglected him in that moment. And
How
so
many
what
times did you let him cry it out?
like that once.
Okay.
The rest of the time we would do like cry it out, no, but like fuss around a little bit. And then I go in and like say hello and then I leave again. And then I go in and say hello and then I leave again. There was that, but I did a good amount of that. I was not nurturing. I wasn't born to be a parent. I had no clue, so overwhelmed, just didn't know how to do it. And I bred that in him. Like I built that in him. And now I'm just like, how do I reverse this? Because he is becoming more and more secure. We just moved into a whole new town. It was a lot for him to go and meet new friends. And now he's showing so much more security because I didn't pull him out of the school like I wanted to because I just like felt so bad. I I'm doing my best to like give him the tools and the self-talk and the narratives of like knowing who he is. I just am so just really aware that I did that. Like I imprinted that in him and it just devastates my soul.
I could imagine, and I know. I can see the pain that it causes you. My honest opinion is I think that's a story you've created in your head that
Okay.
you did this thing once and it's had this incredible impact and now you're
Oh,
suffering from that story.
yeah.
So I can tell you that the research would say that that's not true. Something
Okay.
has to repeat, many times to create a pattern, right?
Okay.
So one incident as such is not going to allow a child to develop a pattern of my mother's love was inconsistent,
Mm.
right? Like if it happened once, like
Well, and
so
it's of course like other things added in and like my just dysregulation and these types of things coming through. It's just more so he used to be secure and then he's not anymore. And I'm just like, what happened? Like, where'd
So,
you go?
again, it's not a fixed state, right? So
Yeah.
he probably is secure, leaning anxious, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
so at this point in time, if he's having a moment where he's expressing an emotion, the best thing you can do, and I think you're already doing this, is help him to try to identify the emotion. Where does
Mm-hmm.
he feel it in his body?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then say, okay, what are you thinking right now?
He's so sick of it though.
That's
Like
okay.
there's certain days I'm like, how are you feeling? Fine. Can you tell me something other than fine? Ugh, you always say that. I'm like, well, it's not
Okay, but
though, you
I
know?
know, listen, and it doesn't get better with boys, to be honest. My two boys
Right.
are in college, and I'm like, how's school? Fine. I mean,
Ugh,
yeah, so it's
my
boys.
anxiousness is it's so hard for me to tolerate.
I know.
Yeah.
It's boys, so we have to, we have to work with them. A couple of tricks that I found.
Yes, please.
Um, when you're speaking face to face with a young boy, that's not good. They don't like
Mm,
it. So
okay.
one of the best things you can do is I would have the best talks with my sons when I was driving and they were sitting either in the back or as they were older, they're sitting next to me, but we're not face to face. We would go for a walk together. We're not face to face, we're side by side. Or my son, let's say, would be doing homework at the kitchen table and I was turned around, maybe I was stirring dinner. I'm not staring at him in
Mm.
the face because that requires a high degree of intimacy that can be threatening.
Oh, wow.
So the
Okay.
best conversations that you'll have will be where the two of you are present, but you're not. So try going for a walk where you're side by side. I don't know if you have a dog, take the dog for a walk,
Hmm. Yeah.
or and
This is
and
just making so much sense.
yeah.
And that's why like bedtime is usually where we're both laying down. We'll like look at the stars, go in, and then that's when he'll be like, hey, today this someone was kind of mean to me and this is what they said, and whatever
Yeah.
that is. And I'm like, oh, what? Like immediately just like get up
So
and give
keep
us that
looking at the
context.
ceiling. Keep looking. Keep
Noted.
and and go. Okay, how did that make you feel? Don't that instinct to turn because what
Yeah.
you're trying to do is you're trying to build closeness with him. But
Yeah.
if he's if that's making him clam up, accept the cue, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So
Man.
try doing it in a way that is less intimate,
Sure.
right? Like the walk, the
Yeah.
car ride, that sort of thing.
Well, and what
Um,
we see a lot of parents saying is like, look at me, look at my like when we're trying to like give a consequence or discipline or whatever
right.
that is, we see that constantly, right? So and we almost view the looking away as a sign of disrespect to some degree.
But that's a template. That's an interpretation,
Yeah.
right? So the son could be looking away because he's uncomfortable with the level of directness, and
Hmm.
you're interpreting it as disrespect because you have a core wound in you that from your childhood where you felt disrespected. And so
Hmm.
those core wounds that we have, they're like landmines that we carry. So
Yeah.
when someone steps on it or pushes that button or steps on the landmine, it creates an emotional response to you. But it's only because that button or that landmine was already in you.
Mm-hmm.
So the person who says, well, when my son looks away, he's being disrespectful. That's because they already have a wound of I am not respected. I can tell you clearly when my son looks away, I don't feel disrespected.
Yeah.
I have other wounds, but not that one.
Mhm. No, I
So,
mean it makes so much sense. Yeah,
yeah.
my son had told me a while back that he didn't like doing that because he said that he didn't like seeing me upset with him. Like he didn't like actually having a face to put to that experience. And so
Okay.
now we just don't. And so
Yeah.
now it's more so like we'll kind of like look down and like,
Yep.
fidget or whatever that is and kind of allow for that. It's wild. I heard this thing a while back that you grow up with your first and you raise your second or any after that and it just makes so much sense.
Yeah, yeah, it really does. In fact, kudos to your son for being able to verbalize, mom, it makes me uncomfortable. I don't like when we have face-to-face conversations. So, just a minor adjustment. Have your
Hmm.
conversations, but side by side, not face to face.
Yeah. Yeah. Noted.
Yeah, it'll make all the difference, I promise you.
Yeah.
And
And
this
here's why I'm listening.
Well, and this idea that that you created something because you let him cry and this and that. I would, work toward releasing that. That's a story you're telling yourself that is likely tied to a core wounds. Again, we see this very often in people who are anxiously attached, which is I am
Yeah.
not good enough. So it's possible that you're thinking you didn't do a good enough job as a mother, you made mistakes, which we all do. But because you might have that wound already in you, it's like it's pushing, and now you're creating a story to validate what you already believe to be true.
Which is also my like nightmare too, right? So
Yes.
it's yeah, I hear that. Damn.
So I would release
Mhm.
that one that you created this situation because you let him cry for one time. And I mean, by what I hear you saying, you were there for your son. You did the best you could. You were consistent. Your son feels safe with you. That's all they really need.
Mm. Yeah. And the reason I shared that, especially here, that will be published is because I know how many parents feel that way. And especially because I'm doing anger management, what we end up kind of getting to the root of are so many of these kinds of stories that, and it's
Mhm.
guilt and it's shame and it's blame and all of these things that we have such a hard time forgiving ourselves for. And so I wanted to lead with
Yeah.
that and share that so that hopefully it will encourage other people to take your same advice and apply it to their
Yeah, and,
experience.
and so that's why I say when you're in these moments where you're feeling an emotion come up, ask yourself, what am I thinking right now? Try to bring it to your conscious awareness. Because what
Mm.
happens is as humans, we are so talented at creating stories. When we don't have all the information, we fill in the blanks. Well,
Yeah.
they must be angry because I didn't call them back. They must be angry. We just make stuff up,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
then we convince ourselves it's true, and then we run with it.
Yeah.
So, 9 out of 10 times, the story or the reason or the rationale that you've come up with is just simply wrong. But you're creating all this suffering for yourself. Like, think of the amount of suffering you've created for yourself because you think you've created something because you let him cry 6 years ago. Like, I mean,
It's so
right?
twisted. It's so ridiculous.
So now
And
that you can laugh about it, now that you're like, okay, I see the silliness,
yeah,
release it. And if the story comes back into repeat, on the playlist, you go, oh, hold on, we're not listening to this one anymore, and just delete it from the playlist.
fair.
Like,
Yeah, fair.
yeah. So you have control over your mind to do that.
Mhm.
So 90% of what we tell ourselves in terms of stories, they're just not true.
Yeah, I see that, I get it. And it's really just these things affirm how much I default to the anxious.
Not just you,
Yeah.
right? like
Yeah.
like how much we really just we rely on these initial patterns, our operating systems, because we are guided by primarily our subconscious mind, and that's where the programs are stored. And so the work that I try to do is to bring conscious awareness to, okay, what is this attached to in terms of a core wound? What are you thinking in the moment? And then, okay, let's parse out what's real and what's a story.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's right. It's, you can't read the label from inside the jar. And so there are these things about I'm launching this parental shift program that's about it's for parents. It's not about how to parent. I'm not a child development expert. It's instead how do we do the work on ourselves so that we parent from a position of knowing who you are and feeling empowered within this sense of healing and growth and evolution that we can go through.
Yeah.
And when I picture somebody coming to me and telling me that exact thing that you just said, that I told you, I can imagine myself giving this like very similar guidance of that. And yet when it's me, I'm like, no, I'm the exception. No, great at this,
Yeah. Yeah.
but great at giving advice, shit at taking it?
That is very human.
Hmm.
Very human. We are so hard on ourselves,
Yeah.
particularly if you're anxiously attached, because again, you don't trust yourself. but you trust everyone else. So you give
Yeah.
everyone else, you afford them a level of trust and grace, and but yourself, not so much.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah. This was a great talk. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you so much for being here. And I know we went overtime, and I'm so grateful. And I hope it didn't mess with
No,
your.
no, I'll figure it out. But you asked beautiful questions. I think you're a lovely person. I love what you're doing, and thank you for honoring me to be a part of your show.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to have you back if you'd ever be open to it, to maybe
Sure.
even go into more depth of each one. I think that would be incredibly powerful.
I'd be happy to do that. Yeah, and
Yeah.
to talk even more about like emotional regulation and parenting, and because I think that this is an important life skill.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe even within the program, I'm looking for people to be hosting some information sessions and give some
Sure.
psychoeducation. I would absolutely adore for you to be part of it.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too. We'll speak again soon. Contact me anytime.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you. Bye.